Hello everyone, today making Butterick 2545, published in 1963. These are the materials you'll need for this project. I'm using a black cotton from my stash for this blouse. I've made a dress previously out of this and another shirt, and I'm really happy with how it looks and fits. I plan on wearing this during the summer, so I thought that this would go well with some of the pants that I have. I've been trying to make a lot more 60s tops recently, just to match some of the things in my wardrobe. There are tons of different styles to pick from in the 60s, so you can really go crazy and pick whatever your heart desires. It really was the best era for this. For this project, I decided to go with this blouse with the little slits in the front. I thought it was quite cute. Recently, I've been trying to make a lot of basics. I find that it's hard to thrift those, and so if I can make them, I can pair them with things that I thrift that are a little bit more extravagant. I've been really inspired by the Beatniks recently, who were a group of artists in the 50s and 60s shaped by poverty during World War II, included writers, painters, musicians. I feel like the things that they stood for were more relevant than ever, so I've been really interested in that subculture recently. This blouse has a lot of fiddly stuff on the front. It has two waist darts and two bust darts. As you can see here, the waist darts are these huge slashes at the front, which give shaping to just under the bust area. You basically sew an inch from the bottom and then a little bit at the top. And once you've done that, you take it off, you iron it, and then you cut it open and flip that portion up on top of itself to create the facing on the inside of that little flap at the front of the blouse. I thought that this construction was really ingenious because this way you don't have to cut a separate pattern piece. And if the blouse, comes up a little bit, it looks extremely tidy underneath. And I also appreciated the proportions of the blind hem at the bottom. I felt like it added a real sense of balance to the blouse when you looked at it from the front. I really appreciate the way that these older patterns are designed and drafted. You can really tell that the person who made them or the team was really skilled and thoughtful with the way they were presenting things and putting them together, which I find can be missing from newer patterns or even the reproduction versions of these, which I think have been watered down to be quote unquote easier. There's just a way that these garments come together that is really beautiful and admirable. It's almost sculptural the way that they've been designed, which makes sense because it is a blouse. Shaping around the bust and the arms and the waist is very sculptural at the end of the day. The way you cover things, the way you choose not to cover things. Back to the blouse, you can see here that I'm cutting open those darts at the front. This felt really wrong. I don't think I've ever cut open a dart like this, and so doing it felt very damaging. And once I had done it, I could see the logic behind it, but it was just that kind of thing where you'd have to trust the process of the instructions, especially around this bit at the top. It's not exactly clear in the instructions how they want you to finish the top of the dart, so I kind of cut in a triangle just so that bit at the top could lay flat when I ironed it. You can see here I'm checking to make sure that my cut was down the middle and even. One other thing I liked about this project was the way the upper back was shaped. The back neck facing is attached to the button panel, so when you fold over that panel, the neck facing just is there, and you sew it into the front facing, and it's all one nice continuous piece. I felt like that really added some structure to the drape at the back. This whole blouse is very well made. Here I am ironing and pressing those darts open. They're really quite long before you flip them over. And here I am with my pinking shears. I've been trying for years to figure out a way to sharpen my pinking shears. I got a chisel, I took them to the store, nothing seems to work, so I keep having to buy a new pair. So if you know what to do, please let me know in the comments down below, because it feels so wasteful to use a pair of scissors for a couple years and then just throw them out because you can't sharpen them. I actually have a pair of vintage pinking shears from I think the 60s or 70s, and they're beautiful metal, but I just don't really know what to do with it. And I don't want to get rid of them. So I've just been holding on to them, hoping that one day I'll figure out what to do. So if you know, please let me know. So after you do the front, you just kind of sew these sides together. It's pretty straightforward from this point on. The real bulk of the sewing is at the front of the shirt. The shoulders, everything else is very straightforward. I've definitely had some sewing patterns where there is no relief from the finicky bits, especially with these vintage patterns. So this blouse is very fun to just kind of like do a little bit and then move on. I think once you've done it once, it would make a good like afternoon project, especially if you want to play around with appliques or like matching patterns, anything like that. It's such a blank slate that there's a lot you could do with it. As you can see here, I'm just using some black interfacing to strengthen the button panel. I always like to make sure that my interfacing is as close as possible to the fabric I've chosen. That way, when I make my buttonholes, the interfacing, which will inevitably show, is as close as possible and isn't distracting. And here I am just popping it on the mannequin. I like to bring my things to the mannequin just so I can get a glimpse at how everything's going, make sure I'm not missing anything. I'm doing that portion here where you pin it and you flip it up. I actually brought out a ruler for this to make sure that my hem was even all the way around. With these little flaps at the front, I did off camera sew them together. I used a mattress stitch along the edge of the inside so that those two layers were sandwiched together. It doesn't say in the pattern what exactly you should be doing, so you just kind of have to use your skill and eyeball it and figure out what works best for you. I'm sure you could do something complicated where you like flip it open and sew them together in a way that's invisible, but that's just a bit out of my tool house, so I just did what was easiest for me. Now, once you've hemmed the garment and you've finished all the sides, you move on to the sleeves. This is always my least favorite part of sewing. I don't think I've ever been able to fit a sleeve easily. It always takes me a while. So I've started fully basting in the sleeve when I finally get it in place. And then I will actually have to flip it over, look at it, make sure I don't have any like tucks, and I'll do some stitch ripping because you do want to get it right the first time. And here is the finished blouse. I decided to pair it with some vintage 60s heels and this Levi's orange tag skirt. And then I actually made it a second time out of a black and white striped cotton to wear with this white 60s skirt that I thrifted in these Keds. I hope to see you guys in the next one, and thank you for watching.